Let's drift off now, far from the buzzing of your phone, the chill of your AC, the safety of four solid walls. Let's go somewhere warm. No hot. No sweltering. Let's go to the Amazon. You wake up in a hammock strung between two suspiciously bendy trees. The sun isn't up yet, but the air is already wet enough to drink. You're sticky. You've done nothing, but your shirt clings to you like guilt. You sit up and realize you are outside, and something is buzzing. No, everything is buzzing. It's like someone dropped a beehive into a blender and hit jungle mode. You try to step out of the hammock. You fall onto mud. It squelches. Something small and fast slithers away. You hope it was a lizard. You pray it wasn't a snake. You begin to sweat harder. Breakfast? A local fruit. Looks like a lime. Tastes like pepper, soap, and sorrow. You chew anyway. Then a guide appears, shirtless, confident, and holding a machete. He says, "Time to explore." You are not ready, but you go. The path is not a path. It is vague intention. Every step is a negotiation. The jungle presses in, vines like ropes, leaves the size of pizza boxes, insects with wings that sound like helicopters. Something lands on your neck. You sweat. You regret. 10 minutes in, you've been bitten 7 times. You've named the bites. You wonder if they'll name you in return, perhaps after you die. A monkey screams in the distance. You assume it's laughing at you. By noon, your water is gone. The guide drinks from a vine. You try to copy him. You drink. It tastes like sadness and frog. You think you hallucinate a toucan giving you side eye. You step into a puddle. It's deeper than it looks. You're in up to your thigh. The mud hugs you. A leech joins in. You scream, quietly, because you don't want the jaguar to hear. Someone yells, "Ants!" You run. You fall. Into ants. They are red. They are angry. They are everywhere. You dance like you've invented a new martial art. The guide nods in approval. You find shelter under a rock. The rock is also a home to 30 frogs. They're territorial. You are evicted. By evening, you are bleeding, sunburned, mildly poisoned, and possibly spiritually cursed. You ask when dinner is. The guide hands you a grilled insect. You close your eyes. You bite. You taste legs. And despair. Night falls fast in the Amazon. It doesn't dim. It slams shut like a coffin lid. The jungle gets louder. Birds scream. Frogs argue. Something growls. You crawl back to your hammock if it's still there. You don't care. You lie down. Something brushes your ankle. You tell yourself it's a leaf. You know it's not. You dream of fans, Wi-Fi, pizza, soap. You do not dream of adventure. And that was your first and last day on the Amazon. Good night, jungle explorer. Sleep while you can. The hammock sways gently, but not from a breeze. There is no breeze. The air is thick and unmoving. like a wet towel wrapped around your lungs. You try to close your eyes. You try to sleep. But the jungle does not sleep. 1,000 creatures begin their symphony. Chirps, croaks, hisses, clicks, and one terrifying sound that's either a jaguar or a very aggressive bird. You pull your mosquito net tighter. It has holes. So many holes. Your skin itches. You don't scratch. That's how they win. Something brushes against your foot. You jolt. The hammock swings. You fall. Again. Face first into the jungle floor. It's moist. And crawling. You sit up. Eyes adjust. You see eyes. Glowing. Small. Close. You freeze. It freezes. Then it jumps. It's a frog. You scream. Quietly. Like a man who has no dignity left to protect. You climb back into your hammock like it's a lifeboat on a sea of nightmares. Time passes. You don't know how much. You measure time in bug bites now. The jungle noises swell, then fall, like breathing. You think you hear footsteps. Human? Animal? Imagination? Nope. Your guide appears. He smiles. Good news, he says. Tomorrow we go deeper. You want to cry, but your tears evaporate before they fall. Even your suffering is humid. Day 2. You awaken in a puddle of your own sweat. It's 5 a.m. The sun isn't up, but the heat is fully clocked in. Something in your hair moves. You decide not to investigate. Breakfast is a boiled root. The guide calls it nutritious. Your tongue calls it betrayal. You hike. Everything is uphill. Even the downhill parts. You swing on a vine. It breaks. You fall into a nest of something with claws. You eat a berry. The guide slaps it out of your mouth. That kills goats, he says. You step on a snake. The snake is more scared than you are. Barely. You bathe in a river. Something swims by. It has teeth. You scream. A parrot screams back, mocking your accent. You lose a shoe. Then your dignity. Then your balance. By mid-afternoon, you're hallucinating. You swear the jungle is whispering. You think you see a Wi-Fi signal. You reach for it. It's a wasp. Night 2. You decide to sleep on the ground. It can't be worse. It is. The ground is alive. The ants return. They remember you. You curl into a ball. The sky thunders. A tropical storm begins. You are now wet inside your bones. The guide sleeps peacefully in a tree like some kind of forest Jedi. You lie awake wondering if insurance covers emotional jungle damage. You close your eyes. You open them. It's day 3. You don't care. You are now one with the mud. You are the jungle. You hear the guide say, "Want to try fire ants next?" You smile. You laugh. You pass out. You wake up face down in mud. You're no longer sure how many nights you've spent here. Your sense of time has collapsed into 3 distinct categories. Bug hour. snake o'clock, screaming frog twilight. Your guide greets you with his usual, unreasonably cheerful, "Time to move!" You do not move. You consider photosynthesizing instead. He lifts you. You make a noise that's somewhere between a groan and a broken kettle. Today's goal: reach a tribal village deeper in the jungle. You ask why. The guide shrugs. Experience. You no longer want experiences. You want air conditioning and garlic bread. The trail disappears. So does your will to live. You stumble through vines that slap your face like nature's insults. A bird dive bombs you. You flinch. The guide laughs. It's only territorial. So are sharks. You don't feel better. Hours pass. You cross a narrow log bridge. You slip. You hang. You scream. You survive, barely. Your reward? A swarm of bees greets you on the other side. You are stung. Many times. You learn new words. Mostly screams. In multiple languages. You ask if you're allergic. The guide says, "We'll find out." Arrival at the village. At last you reach a clearing. There are huts, people smoke. Children stare. One pokes your leg. It jiggles. You have become the soft foreigner. The elder of the tribe approaches. You hope for medicine. You receive a ceremonial drink. It is green. It bubbles. You drink. Your vision blurs. The trees begin to sway, but there is no wind. The frogs seem to whisper your name. You see your grandmother, but she has feathers. A sloth explains the meaning of life to you in slow Portuguese. You pass out on a drum. The dream. You dream of home. The hum of a refrigerator. The glow of a screen. Crispy fries. Silence. Then the silence is broken. By birds. By buzzing. By the guide. Day 4. Rebirth or defeat? You wake up covered in ceremonial paint, mosquito bites, and shame. The guide says, "Tomorrow we return upriver." You ask, "By what? Boat?" He grins. "No. We paddle. In a dugout canoe. Against the current." You cry. You don't try to hide it. Even the jungle pauses. A butterfly lands on your forehead, as if to say, "It's okay." We've all been there. And thus ends your Amazonian saga, not with triumph, but with tears, sweat, mud, and a very judgmental toucan. Good night, explorer. May your dreams be free of spiders. You paddle. Badly. The canoe is wobbly. The river is wide. The guide is a machine, rhythmic, precise, infuriatingly calm. You, on the other hand, paddle in confused zigzags. You spin in place. You hit a log. You apologize to the log. The current is strong. Your arms are weak. Your soul is gone. You ask how long the return trip will take. The guide says, 3 days. You cry again. Quietly. The river takes your tears like a tax. That night, you stop on a muddy bank to sleep. Your hammock is missing. You sleep on a root. It pokes your kidney. You try to dream. You can't. You no longer remember how silence sounds. You hear drums far away. Animal howls. Laughter. Or is it screaming? Even the guide looks mildly concerned. A bug flies into your ear. It doesn't come out. You accept it as your new roommate. Day 6, mutiny in the mud. You paddle again. Your shoulders have separated from your spirit. You see a pink dolphin. The guide says it's a good omen. You think it's a hallucination. You try to speak but only croak. The jungle blurs by. You swear it's laughing. A sloth watches you, judging. You envy its stillness. You stop for food, dried fish and cassava paste. The fish looks like it died of natural causes a long time ago. You eat it. You stop caring. Day 7, civilization? You see something in the distance. A structure. A dock. A boat. A signal tower. Your lip trembles. You beach the canoe. You stumble up the bank. You kiss a cement wall. You hug a plastic chair. You sob into a bottle of Fanta. You made it. But something has changed. You flinch at the hum of a refrigerator. You duck when you hear an air conditioner start. You glare at your shampoo bottle and whisper, "You don't know what I've seen." You go home. But the jungle, it doesn't leave you. You still hear frogs at night. You still dream of vines. You can't eat fruit anymore without scanning it for ants. You survived. But you're not the same. And the guide? He sends you a postcard every year. Just one word. Return? Sleep well, jungle veteran. You've earned it. But don't roll too far to the left. There might still be mud in your soul. You're home now. But the jungle didn't stay behind. It followed you, in your spine, your ears, your dreams. You flinch at ceiling fans. You side-eye houseplants. You hear buzzing in silence. At dinner, you skin your plate for ants. You smell mango and taste trauma. You whisper apologies to your shower head. At night, you lie awake. The bed is too soft. The air is too still. The absence of frogs is loud. You close your eyes. The trees return. The heat wraps around you. The guide's voice echoes. Next time, deeper. You smile. You never left. You returned. To walls, lights, Wi-Fi, soap. The taxi driver looked at you strangely when you hugged the seatbelt. The customs officer asked what you were bringing home. You said, "Trauma," and he waved you through. At home, everything felt wrong. The silence was too clean. The bed too forgiving. The light switch made you flinch. Your friends wanted stories. They wanted crazy bugs and wild monkeys. You smiled politely and said, "I was bitten by an ant that made me forget my name for 6 hours." They laughed. You didn't. You went to the supermarket. The fluorescent lights hummed. You stood in the produce aisle, staring at bananas. They were too perfect. Too clean. No bite marks, no ants, no snakes hanging nearby. You walked out without buying anything. At night, you can't sleep. You lie on your memory foam mattress, sweating under a thin blanket in a 20 degrees Celsius room. The AC makes a soft whir. You miss the roar of frogs. The quiet is unbearable. Sometimes you hear the jungle, even here. Not real sounds, but echoes. Buzzing that doesn't stop. Footsteps in your hallway that sound like soft paws. You wake up tangled in sheets, whispering. Not the ants. Not again. You change. You stop using shampoo. Too artificial. You start drinking warm water. Cold hurts your teeth now. You walk barefoot on purpose, seeking the feel of mud. One day, you're late to a meeting. You say, "Sorry, I was avoiding snakes." No one laughs this time. You check your inbox. There's an email. No subject. No sender. Just a message. Dry season begins. Ready to return? Your hand trembles. You stare at your screen. You click reply. You write. Yes. You close your laptop. You sit still. You listen. And somewhere, faint but familiar, you hear the jungle breathing. You pack lightly this time. No guidebooks. No repellents. You don't even bring socks. Your friends ask, "Why go back?" You reply, "Because it called." They laugh. You don't. At the airport, you see a group of tourists. Clean. Optimistic. Full of SPF 50 and bravado. You nod silently. They won't last 2 days. You fly. You land. The air hits you like a memory. Hot. Thick. Alive. The man waiting for you at the dock says nothing. Just nods. He hands you a paddle. No instructions. You remember. Days dissolve. You paddle. You sweat. You sleep under skies too big to comprehend. You're not bitten. You're chosen. The jungle knows you now. It doesn't attack, it waits. You no longer hear birds, you understand them. You no longer fear frogs, they guide you. You stop wearing your watch. Time flows differently here. No hours. Just light and pulse. A new village. You arrive where the map ends. But you were never following the map. They welcome you like a returning part of the forest. You speak less. You listen more. At night, you lie in a hammock made of vines. It does not creak. It cradles. Someone chants. You don't understand the words, but your body responds, like it remembers a rhythm older than language. You sleep. The dream again. This time, the dream isn't of leaving. It's of staying, of dissolving, of becoming. A tree, a bird, a sound in the canopy. You don't wake with fear. You wake with stillness. You are no longer a visitor. Post-return. You don't really return. You come back to the city. But part of you stayed. You speak softer. You walk slower. You pause before every light switch, every closed door. People ask what changed. You say, everything. They nod politely and go back to their phones. But you hear it, in the hum of streetlights, in the rustle of leaves in a city park. The jungle is patient, and it remembers you. I'm home, supposedly. The walls are straight. The lights are soft. People smile when they pass. But I still hear the jungle, not with my ears. Deeper. A kind of pulse under the skin. A rhythm behind silence. Nothing buzzes here. And that frightens me more than when everything did. I put on a clean shirt, and it cuts me. Paper comfort. Artificial smoothness. I lie on a bed, too flat, too kind, and I roll off it. I can't rest on anything that isn't tied between trees. I close my eyes. I'm back. A memory? A dream? Does it matter? The river is there. Brown. Ancient. Breathing. It carries me, slow and wide, like it knows where I need to go better than I do. No engine. No map. No destination. And I've stopped fighting it. You ask why I went back. But I never left, did I? My body came back. Yes. It sits at desks. Sips coffee. Smiles on cue. But my bones? They're still in the canopy. Still curled in the hammock made of vines. Still listening to frogs argue in the dark. Still watching the eyes of the forest blink in unison. The jungle didn't spit me out. It absorbed me. It rewrote me in leaves and bites and silence. It took everything I thought I was, and returned only what I needed to be. Now, the city feels too loud with quiet. I miss the noise that had meaning, the chaos that had logic, the danger that had rhythm. So when someone asks, "You're back, right?" I smile. "No," I say. "I'm just visiting." Sleep well, if you can, because somewhere in the night, there's a whisper. It's not your name, but it's calling you all the same. Time feels strange now. I count days and sounds. The shriek of a macaw. The crack of a branch that wasn't wind. The rhythm of my own breath, slower now, syncing with something older than language. I used to fear the dark. Now I miss it. The way the night pressed against my skin like a blanket. How the jungle didn't sleep, it watched. And hummed. And waited. Not for anything. Just because it could. I walk among crowds and feel invisible. Not because they don't see me, but because I'm not really here. My soul is somewhere deep beneath wet roots. Dripping. Listening. Becoming soil. You talk to me, I answer. But the voice you hear? That's the shell. The rest of me speaks in silence, in twitching vines, in the tilt of a heron's head by the river. Sometimes I wonder, what would have happened if I never came back? Would anyone have noticed? Would I? I imagine myself still there, a shape in the mist, barefoot, no longer swatting bugs, but guiding them, speaking with eyes, breathing with trees, not human anymore, not beast, just part of it. The forest doesn't need your name. It takes it quietly, like fog. Then your schedule, your plans, your sense of beginning and end. And in return, it gives you a single truth. You belong to everything, and nothing belongs to you. So I sit here now, air conditioned, washed, civilized, but I twitch when it rains. I flinch at silence. I smile at mold. And every night, as I drift off, I hear it, low, gentle, not calling, just breathing, waiting. Spokojnik sleeper. You think you're safe, but the jungle doesn't chase. It waits, and it remembers you. Some nights, I don't speak at all. Words feel too sharp, like tools for carving things that should stay whole. In the jungle, we didn't use so many words. We listened, to wings brushing the air, to trees cracking in warning, to silence that meant something was watching. Here, silence just means nobody's home. I've stopped explaining. People ask, "What was it like?" And I just nod. How do you explain that your skin still expects to bleed? That your hands still remember how to cup water from a leaf? That your dreams come with humidity and the taste of copper? I keep a plant on my desk now, not for decoration, for communication. I watch it bend toward light. I whisper to it sometimes, not in language, just intention. It understands. Plants don't need grammar. I no longer miss the jungle, because missing implies separation. And I know now, we never truly leave where we've been fully seen. The jungle saw me, the version beneath all the layers, and she did not flinch. I remember the day I stopped being me, not dramatic, not ritualistic, just a moment, a stillness. I watched a spider build its web across my boot, and I didn't move, not out of fear, but because I didn't want to disturb her world. She was busy. She had purpose. I was just passing through, and in that moment I realized, maybe I always was. People say, "You came back different." They're right. But they think it's trauma. It's not. It's truth. Stripped of packaging, of routine, of pretending. Just this raw, pulsing, green knowledge that everything is watching. And nothing judges. Only people do that. Now I sleep near the window. Let the air in. Let the night talk. Sometimes I hear the rain, and it sounds like the river again. Sometimes I wake with soil under my nails. Sometimes I wake and forget where I am, who I am. And in that confusion I feel peace. Sleep tight, listener. And if one night you wake up and the ceiling above you is made of leaves, don't be afraid. That's not a dream. That's a welcome back. I no longer remember the jungle. I am it. I don't carry it with me. It carries me. When I walk through the city, I don't walk on the ground. I drift between layers, between glass and leaves, between asphalt and root. People pass me and smile. They see a person, a face, clothes. But that's just the wrapping. The core has already unraveled, left behind gently somewhere in the undergrowth, where the sun flickers like breath through vines. I've stopped sleeping like before. Now I lie still, eyes open, listening. And sometimes I hear things others can't. A buzzing before the rain. A creak that means a tree is leaning. A silence that's about to burst. I no longer dream of running. I dream of staying still. Of moss covering my chest like a blanket. Of something building a nest in the hollow of my ribs. And I welcome it. I forget words now. Not from fear. From lack of need. Why name what is already known? Why say leaf when the leaf is your skin? Why say home when your pulse is the map? I speak less. I listen more. Not to people. To patterns. Shadows. Humidity. I had a name once. I still remember how it sounded. But it doesn't respond when called. Now I come when the birds sing a certain pitch. When frogs go silent. When wind changes direction mid-step. That's who I am now. Not man. Not beast. Not even memory. I am rhythm. A pause between two rustling leaves. A shape you almost see when the fog rises. Will I go back? I never left. Will I return to the jungle? She never let me go. So if you ever find yourself at the river's edge, and the water seems to ripple without wind, and you feel watched but not threatened, and you hear someone whisper your name from deep inside the trees, don't run. It's only me, waiting, to walk with you, to listen, to help you forget too. Good night. Close your eyes. And when the forest arrives in your dreams, don't resist. You've come far to hear this. Or maybe you haven't moved at all. Maybe you just closed your eyes long enough. Long enough for the edges of your life to blur. For your breath to slow. For your memories to fall quiet like leaves. And now you're here. Where I am. Where I became. I used to think identity was something solid. A name. A job. A playlist. A scent you leave behind on bedsheets. Now I know it's vapor. I watched mine rise like mist from my skin and drift into the canopy. No rush. No pain. Just release. Now when I speak, if I speak, it's not for me. It's the forest that chooses the words. And I am only the mouth. You want to know what's next? Nothing. Everything. Silence, but not the empty kind. The kind that holds meaning. That hums with insects and understanding. There is no after this. Only continuation. No return. Only recursion. You close your eyes. You open them. The sky is green. The air is warm. Your fingers brush bark. Not walls. You feel no fear. Not anymore. Because now the forest speaks to you too. Not with words, but with recognition. Your heartbeat slows. Matches something older. And you understand. You don't need to survive the jungle. You only need to stop resisting it. Then it accepts you. Then it feeds you. Then it remembers you. And one day, you'll whisper to someone else, just like I did to you. Close your eyes. Breathe. She's already inside you. Sleep. Now. Forever, if you want. The jungle doesn't mind. She keeps everything. There is no more I. There is no more you. There is only breath. Wet. Rhythmic. Endless. Moving through vines, through soil, through silence. No more footsteps. Only rustle. Only drift. The body is gone. Its lines erased by moss. Its name forgotten by birds. But something remains. A pattern. A warmth in the shadow. A hush between rain and root. You may come here again. Maybe by dream. Maybe by madness. Maybe by choice. And when you do, you'll feel it. Not fear. Not recognition. But return. A reunion with something that never truly lost you. You might call it forest. You might call it spirit. You might not call it anything at all. It doesn't mind. It just is. And you are now part of it. A hum in the night. A whisper in the leaves. A gaze behind the trees. That doesn't want anything. Except to be there. When someone else wakes up. And hears the jungle breathing. There's no more story to tell. But the jungle still hums. Because she never needed words to begin with. You've heard everything. And yet, you still listen. That's how it starts. That's how it continues. You return to your routines. Maybe. Kind of. But now, coffee tastes different. Not bitter. Just less alive. You pour it in silence and remember the rainwater dripping from a leaf. Purer, colder, sacred. You walk through traffic, blinking against glass and noise. But part of you is still watching leaves shake without wind. You try to describe it to someone once. You say, "It was loud, but meaningful." They nod. They don't understand. You don't try again. Sometimes you dream you're walking, but not on streets. Through vines. Soft earth underfoot. A light up ahead that's not artificial, not fire, just warm. You never reach it. You never want to. Because the walking is the point now. You've become the path. No, there is no lesson. No neat ending. No. The moral of the story. Only this. You are still echoing. And so am I. We always will. Sleep now. Not like before. But deeper. Like moss. Like stone. Like memory in fog. We'll speak again. But next time, you might not need words at all. You're not dreaming anymore. You're remembering what dreams were before language, before time. The jungle doesn't need you to come back. She only asks that you stop pretending you ever left. There are no more chapters, no more names, no more you, I, they. There is just this. A soundless rhythm beneath your ribs. A warmth behind your eyes. A green shadow in your thoughts. Not fear. Not peace. just truth. The slow, eternal hum of something older than memory. No one will ask you where you've been. No one would believe it anyway. They'll look in your eyes and say, "You seem different." And you'll nod. And you won't explain. Because you don't remember the story anymore. You are the story. Sleep isn't rest now. It's return. So sleep. Fall into the root system. Let the leaves cover your last thought. Forget your name. Forget the world. There is no more. Next. There is only now. And it's green. And it breathes. With you. In you. As you. No voice now. Just presence. Just a slow inhale through soil. Just the weight of green pressing not on you, but through you. There's no I. There's no you. Only a flicker in the undergrowth. A soft pulse in wet bark. A shape resting where stories stop. What remains? Not the journey. Not the pain. Not even memory. Just the afterimage of being remembered. By something that never needed your name. To love you? You don't want to leave. You couldn't, even if you tried. The river that brought you in now flows inside you. It moves when you breathe. It slows when you forget. And when you truly stop thinking, it becomes everything. So stay. Not in the hammock. Not in the story. Not even in the dream. Stay in the moss thought. The quiet yes of leaf touch. The infinite hush before birds sing. You're not the one sleeping anymore. You're the forest watching someone else fall asleep. And you're smiling. Because you understand. I didn't realize at first that I had returned. Physically, yes, I was far away. But somewhere inside, deep down, I was still standing knee-deep in a warm river, with a leech on my calf, watching sweat drip from my forehead onto the red soil. I could walk down a city street, see the signs, hear the people. But in my head, a dry branch was cracking. Something was crawling nearby, and far away, a night monkey was crying. And that sound felt more real than everything around me. I tried to adapt. Sat in cafes. Ordered things with complicated names. Studied my emails as if they mattered. But it all felt like a game I no longer believed in. If someone had called and said, "Pack your things, the boat leaves downriver tomorrow," I wouldn't have asked where. I would have just gone. Because there was no doubt. People think the jungle is noise, wild danger, snakes, parasites, humidity. That's true. But only on the surface. In truth, the jungle is discipline. Nothing is random. Everything happens exactly when it should. A bird doesn't cry for no reason. Trees don't fall by accident. If you hear something you didn't hear yesterday, it means something has changed. And you are part of that change. When you start listening, really listening, you feel the world speaking to you without language. Not in metaphors, but in direct structures. An anthill isn't just a colony. It's a political system. A mushroom isn't just food. It's media. A path isn't carved. It decides to appear. And you either surrender to that, or you get swept back into the world where everything seems more convenient, but almost nothing makes sense. I lived in silence. Silence that sounded like a million different life forms layered on top of one another. Every insect, every breeze, every line of light had an entry point and an exit. No one shouted, "Look at me!" On the contrary, everything lived side by side, without interference. And that was real attention, not focus, but presence. Not identification, but merging. I stopped fearing death, because I stopped believing in separation. Death in the city is an event. It's dramatic. In the jungle, death is like rain. It comes, does what it needs to do, and goes. The rest adjust. And that's it. It's not a tragedy. It's a necessity. And when I understood that, something softened in me. The edges faded. The chase for meaning and purpose dissolved. I stopped asking questions. I listened. I didn't count time. I felt rhythm. I didn't search for answers. I let answers find me. When they took me out again, because I had to return, I didn't resist. I just looked at the birds flying over the water and thought, I left enough of myself here not to lose the connection. And now, even here, among technology, screens, and news, I know there is another layer. It's beneath all this. It always was. We just don't always hear it. But I do now. And if one day you begin, you won't be able to stop either. Sometimes, in the middle of the night, when the city finally hushes for a moment, when even the buzz of electricity seems to rest, I hear it again. Not with my ears exactly, but somewhere deeper. The rhythm of wings brushing against leaves. The low, soft growl of something unseen, moving carefully through underbrush. A drop of water falling from one large leaf to another. And with it comes a feeling I've stopped trying to explain. Not longing. Not memory. Something more ancient than either. As if part of me never really left. As if the jungle simply allowed me to carry its imprint back here, into the land of fluorescent lights and asphalt. In the supermarket, surrounded by glossy plastic and perfect fruit, I sometimes think about the tree that bore bitter pods the monkeys used as medicine. No signs, no packaging, just knowledge passed silently, generation to generation. Not in words, but in observation. Mimicry. Trust in patterns. There, everything meant something. A broken branch wasn't just debris. It was a message. A warning. A door. Here, things break all the time, and we don't even look. I catch myself watching people. The way they rush through space, through conversation, through time, as if outrunning something. But they don't know what. Or why. The jungle doesn't rush. Even the predator waits. Waits for stillness, for breath, for the exact right moment. It is patient because it is part of the whole. Because it knows that to force anything is to fracture the balance. That's what I miss the most, the sense of being part of something complete. Not important. Not central. Just included. Here I'm expected to perform. To construct a self. To maintain a name, a role, a direction. There I simply was. I wore no watch, but knew when it would rain. I made no plans, but always knew which turn to take. It wasn't instinct. It was something quieter. The listening that becomes knowing. The stillness that reveals structure. Some nights I lie on the floor instead of the bed, just to be closer to the ground. I close my eyes and breathe until I hear nothing but breath itself. And in that breath, sometimes, the trees return. Not as visions, but as presences. Familiar, silent, patient, unconcerned with my need for narrative. They remind me, life doesn't explain itself. It just lives. And so I try to live, not in the way I used to, chasing signals, hunting clarity, but like the forest did, openly, attentively, without apology. The more time passed, the more I noticed how many things here require effort just to feel real. Relationships, careers, even emotions, all propped up, framed, narrated, explained. Like museum pieces behind glass. In the jungle, nothing had to announce itself. A thing was what it was. A vine twisted not for beauty, but because it followed the light. A bird's cry didn't ask to be understood. It simply marked its place in the morning. Now I find myself tired not from action, but from pretense. From having to pretend that I don't remember what it felt like to be fully absorbed by something that didn't care whether I succeeded or failed, because those words had no meaning there. Sometimes I walk out at dawn, before the streets fill. The silence then is almost honest. The city hasn't put on its mask yet. I listen for something underneath the concrete, the memory of root systems, of soil, of a time before metal. And for a moment I almost hear it, a pulse. Subtle, but present. Back there, time wasn't a line. It didn't move forward. It circled, breathed, disappeared, and reappeared. Here, everything is measured, segmented, monetized. I used to think that made things clearer. Now I see it just made them louder. And yet I'm not angry at this world. That too has passed. I don't feel better than it. Just adjacent. Like I'm moving along the same street, but a half second out of phase. Watching everything happen through a soft filter of memory. People speak, and I understand the words. But beneath the words, I hear questions they're not asking. Hungers they won't name. Fears they dress up in plans. In the jungle, you eat when you're hungry, rest when you're tired, hide when it rains. That's it. There's no shame in it. No hesitation. Even the smallest creature moves with certainty, because it has nothing to prove. I think maybe that's what broken me out there, the need to prove. And now I just am. I sit. I walk. I breathe. I let the day unfold. And if a memory comes of the river at dusk, of the golden light breaking through the canopy, of the sound of unseen wings, I let it pass through me, not like nostalgia, but like weather. Because that's all this is. Weather. Movement. Pattern. Silence and motion. And I am just another form of listening. There are moments when someone asks me where I've been. They mean countries, airports, coordinates. But I never quite know how to answer. Because where I've been, truly, has no map. no border crossing. It's not a place you fly to. It's a place you fall into. Slowly, then all at once. Like a dream that doesn't end when you wake. So I usually smile and say something vague. South. Near the river. And they nod, satisfied, imagining sunsets and exotic birds and maybe a hammock or two. But it wasn't like that. It was wet and hot and slow. It was rotting wood and fungus glowing in the dark. It was silence so loud it made your skin vibrate. It was fear, at first. Then surrender. Then something beyond both. Sometimes, late in the evening, I catch my own reflection in the window, and I barely recognize the version of me that used to want so much. To be known. To be seen. To be understood. Now I crave none of that. Not because I've grown past it, but because I've grown through it. I've seen what happens when no one watches you, not because they don't care, but because they trust you to be what you are. I remember the way a monkey once looked at me, just once, and then turned away. Not frightened, not curious, just acknowledging, as if to say, "You are here. That's enough." And truly it was. Here, though, everything is wrapped in mirrors. We watch ourselves watching ourselves. Feedback loops of identity. What am I now? Who do I need to be next? There, the only question was, what are you sensing right now? And that was everything. I still catch myself some days, tensing at a schedule, reacting to a headline, reaching for distraction. But I stop. I close my eyes. I breathe once, twice, slowly, and wait until I feel the pattern return. Not in memory, but in presence. It always comes. Sometimes as a smell, wet soil and wood smoke. Sometimes as a pressure behind the eyes. Sometimes just as stillness. And I know the jungle hasn't left me. It's folded inside me. Quiet but alert. Listening. Lately, I began to dream in green again. Not metaphorical green. Not symbols. Just leaves. Countless leaves, layered over one another like a language without grammar. Dense, breathing walls of life. I move through them not as a guest, but as something briefly borrowed by the forest. And when I wake, there's soil under my nails. Not really, of course, but it feels that way. It's happening more often now. Not just the dreams, but the pull. A quiet gravity. Something beneath the surface of daily life tugging at my ribs. Not urgent. Not desperate. Just steady. Like the way the river calls everything toward its mouth, eventually. I haven't told anyone. What would I say? Then I'm being summoned, not by a voice, but by the shape of silence itself? That I feel my own name beginning to dissolve at the edges? Here, people talk about purpose like it's a destination. There, purpose is a current. You don't chase it. You let it carry you. You don't steer. You respond. I remember one afternoon. It had rained all morning, and the trail was slick with red mud. I was alone. My boots were soaked. I had blisters under the straps. And I stopped. Not out of fatigue, but because the forest asked me to. That's how it felt. Not in words. Just a shift. A moment of mutual attention. And in that stillness, I heard something. Not sound, not thought. Something that told me, this, right now, is where you are meant to be. Not forever. Not for a reason. Just for now. I carry that moment with me still. And I think maybe the real difference between here and there isn't nature. It isn't technology. It's permission. There, I was allowed to just be. Here, I'm expected to become. But I no longer want to become anything. I just want to be, and to belong to the moment that holds me. That's why I've started preparing again. Quietly. Not like before. No dramatic exit. No declarations. Just small things. Unlearning the noise. Letting go of things that cling to identity. Reading the sky. Listening to birds. And in the drawer beside my bed, the old knife still sharp. A coil of line. A soft, worn map, mostly water-stained now. And a note with a name I haven't spoken in years. Not yet, but soon. Not as escape. As return. The first sign was a bird. Just a silhouette, really, high above the concrete skyline, gliding west without flapping. But something in the curve of its wings, the way it adjusted to the wind, it wasn't a city bird. Not one of those frantic, hungry scavengers. This one moved like it remembered trees older than history. And I thought, it's time. Not in words. Not in any deliberate decision. Just a knowing. As simple and irreversible as the turning tide. So I started walking more. Leaving the phone behind. Taking different streets. Ones with more cracks, more roots pushing up through the pavement. Listening. For the pattern. Because that's the difference. Here things are built. There things grow. And I needed to grow again. At first, it was just a feeling. Then it became a rhythm. And now, it's becoming a path. Not mapped. Not marked. But unmistakable. I bought new boots. The kind that don't look new. The kind that remember mud. I touched the frayed edge of my old satchel and felt, for a moment, as if no time had passed. And in that quiet recognition, I felt a warmth I hadn't felt since the river, belonging without possession. I don't talk about it, not because it's secret, but because it's sacred. And in this world, sacred things don't survive too much explanation. People want to understand, to categorize, to translate everything into plans. But not all journeys are goals. Some are just returns. I don't know exactly when I'll leave, but I know how it will feel. The air will be thick again, not with pollution, but with intention. The light will come not in straight lines, but in shimmering fragments through the green. And the silence will welcome me, not because it missed me, but because it never noticed I was gone. That's the truth of the jungle. It doesn't wait. It doesn't weep. It simply continues. And if you return, it makes space. Not with arms, but with openness. So I'm waiting. Not passively, but patiently. Listening more. Wanting less. Until one day, I will step onto the path not as a traveler, but as one who remembers the rhythm, and the rhythm will remember me. I left early. No one noticed. Not because I was invisible, but because I had already begun to fade. Days before, I had stopped making noise. I answered softly, if at all. I moved without urgency. I made space. I became empty enough to pass through. I took the first train going nowhere in particular, just out, away from the angles of the city. Past fences, past warehouses, past the soft industrial hum that never really sleeps. And then fields, trees, sky with no structure. I didn't look back. There's nothing behind me I need to carry. The memories are light now, not because they're gone, but because they've settled, like silt at the bottom of a slow river. Present but still. At a small station, nameless in my memory, I stepped off. The platform was cracked. A dog slept in the sun. No one spoke. Perfect. I walked. Through grass that hadn't been trimmed. Past houses that no longer asked to be noticed. Over roads that had forgotten their purpose. I wasn't rushing. I wasn't even traveling. I was aligning. That's the word. Not going back. Not seeking. Just finding the right speed again. The right breath. The air grew heavier. Not with heat, but with life. You can feel it. The way the world gets thicker, more saturated. And then, without ceremony, the trees began. Not in some cinematic way. No sudden wall of green. Just a quiet narrowing. A bend in the path. Leaves brushing shoulders. A small wet sound underfoot. I stepped inside. And the forest did what it always does. It didn't welcome me. It didn't test me. It simply continued. And in doing so, reminded me, I am not special. I am not the center. I am one more movement in the fabric. The sounds returned, not remembered, but recognized. The buzz of something unseen. The soft crunch of something very old. The shift in air pressure before a bird lifts its wings. I kept walking. Not toward a place. Just deeper. Letting the green rewrite the rhythm of my steps. Letting my name loosen, like laces untied. There will be rain. Hunger. Cold nights. There will be silence so wide it swallows thought. There will be moments of disorientation, of fear even. But there will also be truth. Not spoken. Not taught. Just there, under every leaf. Behind every call. In the slow gaze of an animal that sees you, and does not care who you used to be. I will walk until I stop walking, and then I will be still, and the forest will breathe around me, and in that breathing, I will remember what it means to be real again. It rained the second night. Not a storm, no violence. Just a long, deliberate rain. The kind that doesn't ask permission. The kind that remembers where it left off the last time. I lay under a sheet of plastic, not quite dry, not quite cold. Drops tapped the leaves above like someone whispering in an old language. And I understood enough. I wasn't uncomfortable. That was the first thing I noticed. I wasn't dry or warm or well fed, but I wasn't uncomfortable, because I was in agreement with the world again. That's what most people miss. Comfort isn't softness, it's alignment. When the rain touches your skin and you don't flinch, that's alignment. When you drink water that tastes of soil and leaf, and you feel your stomach say thank you, that's alignment. When you hear a sound in the dark, and instead of fear, you feel curiosity, you've come back to the real tempo. I stopped keeping track of time, of distance. The forest moves differently. It doesn't progress, it unfolds. Every hour doesn't bring you farther. It brings you deeper. Somewhere along the way, I couldn't say when, my thoughts stopped looping. The little spirals of worry, planning, remembering, naming, they went quiet. Not because I solved anything, but because there was nothing to solve. Here, even problems obey pattern. A broken shoe becomes barefoot walking. An insect bite becomes part of the body's map. A wrong turn becomes a new place to listen. One morning I woke to the scent of something sweet and rotten. Fallen fruit. Flies. Life returning to life. I sat and watched the sunlight lean through the branches, touching the skin of the world like it still loved it. And I realized I hadn't spoken in days. Not a word. Not a whisper. And I didn't miss it. There is a voice inside us that only grows loud when all the others go quiet. Not the voice of thought. Not the voice of narrative. The voice beneath language. The one that says not what things are, but that they are. I listened to that. I watched ants pass over my hand without hesitation. I traced the arc of a falling leaf like it was a message meant for me. And I knew I am no longer visiting. I have re-entered the system. Not as a human in a forest, but as a moving part in a breathing hole. And from here on, there is no return. Because what would I return to? A shape? A name? A calendar? No. I will go farther. Not deeper into space, but deeper into attention. Until I forget I ever left. There are no mirrors here. Nothing reflects me back at myself. No surface that says, this is your face. No eyes that ask for explanation. Only the moss, the bark, the steam rising off morning soil, and all of them indifferent, complete. And in their indifference, I feel the deepest welcome. Because to be unseen, truly, is not to be ignored. It is to be accepted without projection. To be absorbed, not recognized. I watch the mist move along the ground like thought that hasn't become language yet. I watch a moth land on the back of my hand, rest a moment and go. No message. No meaning. Just motion. Meaning, I've come to understand, is what we pour into stillness when we can't tolerate silence. But here, there's no need for meaning. There is only sequence. Only breath. A vine curls not because it wants something, but because curling is what it does. A monkey howls not to be heard, but because the air around him is shaped for that sound. A drop falls not because it must, but because it can. And I no longer narrate these things. I let them happen. And in the spaces between them, I dissolve a little more. Each day I feel less like a story and more like a rhythm. I move when the light moves. I drink when the leaves hold water. I rest when the flies stop circling. At night, I lie on the earth and do not distinguish between my skin and the ground beneath it. The warmth of my body is not separate from the warmth of rot, of insects, of the quiet chemical singing of decay. And I find peace there, not in survival, but in surrender. Not death. Not yet. But the end of borders. The slow forgetting of edges. I no longer measure the distance between myself and the forest. Because there is none. There is no I here anymore. There is only the breath of the forest, folding in and out like the tide. The leaf falls. The rain gathers. The earth waits. No names are needed. No stories told. Only the endless dance of presence. The hum of life weaving through itself. Every particle, every sound, every shadow. Part of the same vast becoming. The line between inside and outside dissolves. There is only the pulse. The pulse that was before me, and will remain after me. I am not lost. I am unbound. The forest does not hold me. It frees me, and in this freedom, there is everything, and nothing at once. There is no path here, no direction, no distance between moments. The forest breathes with me, and I with it. The pulse of life is a slow, steady drum, neither loud nor quiet. Just present, just constant. I am no longer a separate note in the symphony. I am the space between the notes. The silence that makes sound possible. The ground beneath me is soft with fallen leaves, old memories folded into earth. I lie down and the soil holds me like an old friend. Neither judging nor asking, just receiving. My skin feels the texture of moss, the coolness of stone, the whisper of creeping vines. And I stop thinking about me and them. I am neither here nor there. I am everywhere the forest moves. A sudden rustle to my left. A flicker of wings overhead. The distant call of something wild and unnameable. All these sounds weave into a single thread, and I follow it without trying. Time unravels, losing meaning. Seconds stretch and fold into themselves. The past and future blur into one vast present. I remember the river, the cold water around my legs. The red soil stained into my skin. But even that memory feels distant. Like a dream I once had but forgot upon waking. Here, there is only the feeling of being held. Not captive, but cradled. The forest's rhythm is my rhythm. Its patience is my patience. Its mystery is my mystery. I no longer ask, why? I no longer seek, how? I simply listen. To the whisper of leaves. To the pulse of insects. To the quiet psalm of life continuing without me. And yet with me. All at once. The sky filters down through branches. A patchwork of light and shadow. Moving slowly like breathing. I close my eyes and the patterns shift behind my eyelids. Colors and shapes dissolving, reforming. like water folding into water. I feel my breath slow deepen, not because I try to control it, but because it naturally finds its place in the forest's cadence. A drop of rain falls on my cheek, cool and soft, and I welcome it as a benediction. In this space beyond words, beyond identity, beyond fear and desire, there is only this pure, unfiltered presence, and it is enough. The days fold into one another like leaves drifting on a slow current, no longer numbered, no longer marked by sunrise or sunset, but by subtle shifts, the angle of light through the canopy, the faint change in humidity that whispers of approaching rain, the gentle stirring of the earth beneath my resting body. Occasionally a breeze moves, not harsh or sudden, but like a soft reminder that everything is in motion, even the stillness. In these moments, I feel a strange clarity, not the clarity of thought or plan, but the clarity of simply being. A sharpness that doesn't cut, but sharpens the edges of experience, makes every sound more vivid, every scent more present, every breath a communion. I sense the small miracles everywhere, the way a spider weaves its web without hesitation, the delicate balance of a leaf as it clings to a branch, the quiet confidence of roots spreading unseen beneath the ground. I remember the city, the noise, the rush, the endless lists of things to do. But those memories now feel like echoes from another life, distant and muffled. Important once, maybe, but no longer. Here, importance is replaced by relevance. By what matters right now, the coolness of a stone, the smell of wet earth after rain, the touch of a butterfly's wing. I don't seek answers. I don't crave understanding. I only open myself wider to receive what comes. Like the forest itself, I unfold. Sometimes I catch glimpses of my own reflection. In a pool of water, in a shiny leaf, in the curve of a tree's bark. But the reflection is faint, almost transparent, and it merges with the surroundings. I am both there and not there, a ripple in the vast stillness, a note in the endless song. Night comes without ceremony. Stars hang like scattered sparks against a velvet curtain. The air cools, and the forest exhales. I lie beneath the sky and feel the pulse of the universe. Slow, vast, timeless, no longer separate, but a thread woven into the endless fabric. And in that thread I find peace, not the restless peace of escape, but the deep peace of homecoming. The morning comes softly, not as an intrusion, but as a gentle unfolding. Light filters through the trees like a quiet invitation. I rise slowly, feeling the weight of the earth still holding me, but also sensing a new kind of movement stirring within. I begin to walk again, not away, but alongside the life that pulses all around me. Each step measured, deliberate, not in search of a destination, but in harmony with the path itself. The world outside the forest is distant now, a faint memory at the edge of perception. But I carry it lightly, like a folded letter in a pocket. The city's rush, its noise, its harsh angles, they no longer command me. I have seen a different rhythm, a deeper cadence, Sometimes I'd pause and listen, really listen, to the hum of insects, the rustle of leaves, the whisper of wind. I find that the same pulse runs through everything. The rush of a subway train, the flicker of a screen, the murmur of crowded streets. All echoes of the life I touched in silence. The forest taught me patience. The patience to wait, to watch, to simply be. It taught me presence. To meet the moment fully, without grasping or fleeing. It taught me surrender. Not defeat, but the freedom to flow with what is. Now, as I move back toward the world I once knew, I carry these lessons not as burdens, but as gifts. I am changed, but not lost. The city still hums, still roars, still spins, but I walk within it differently now. My steps quieter, my eyes softer, my breath deeper. I do not resist the noise. I do not chase meaning. I allow the world to be itself, and myself to be within it, like a single thread woven into a vast tapestry. The forest is not behind me. It is beneath me, around me, inside me. A living pulse I carry wherever I go. And in this pulse, I find a quiet strength, a steady anchor amid the chaos. I am neither lost nor found. I am becoming, and that I realize is enough. Returning to the city was like stepping through a veil. The familiar sights and sounds pressing in from all sides. At first, it felt like a noisy storm after a long silence. Car horns blared, footsteps clattered, voices overlapped. All of it demanding attention, pulling me every which way. But I moved differently now. My breathing was steady, anchored deep within. A quiet pulse beneath the chaos. I learned to walk without being pulled by the noise, to look without grasping, to listen without reacting. People around me hurried, their faces tense and sharp. But I saw past the surface, noticing the flicker of fatigue behind tired eyes, the brief moments of kindness hidden in rushed smiles, the soft desperation beneath forced laughter. I found small refuges in the city, a patch of green in a forgotten courtyard, the rhythm of rain on a busy street, the way light filtered through cracked windows in an old cafe. And in those moments I remembered the forest's lessons. To be present, to surrender, to flow. I stopped chasing meaning. Instead, I let meaning find me. It came in the quiet pause between conversations, in the soft touch of a breeze through an open door, in the shared silence between strangers waiting at a crosswalk. The city had not changed, but I had. I was no longer an outsider looking in, nor a prisoner of its relentless pace. I had become a part of its rhythm, a rhythm that included stillness as much as motion, presence as much as distraction. Sometimes, at night, I closed my eyes and heard the distant call of the forest. A memory, a heartbeat, a promise. It reminded me that beneath the surface of everything, there was another world, quiet, wild, alive, and I carried that world with me, not as an escape, but as a grounding, a well of calm in the midst of noise, a place to return to wherever I was. I was no longer lost. I was home. Days passed, folding softly into one another, and the city revealed itself as a complex, living organism, with a pulse that beat not only in the rhythm of traffic or footsteps, but in the silence between them. I learned to see those pauses, like cracks in stone through which light breaks. They were thin, almost invisible, but within them hid real life. Sometimes, sitting on a bench in a park, watching sunlight play on leaves, feeling a gentle breeze stir the branches, I realized that this small moment, this silence between the sounds of the city, became a ritual for me. I no longer sought to escape the noise, but found in it a rhythm that resonated with my own. I felt how this noise, like a hive, like an anthill, had its own logic, its own order. People became less strange to me. Their fears, their desires, their doubts. I saw them as part of a larger movement, a reflection of the same life beating in the jungle. The feeling of separation gradually faded, replaced by simply, we. And in this, we, I found the deepest peace. Returning was not an end, but a beginning. A new way of being in the world, where every step is an encounter, every word is music, every silence is home. The city never slowed down, but I moved through it differently now, with a quiet patience, an openness to whatever came. I noticed things I had never seen before. The delicate curve of a cracked sidewalk, the soft hum of distant conversations blending like a river, the way a stray cat paused to drink from a puddle, completely present, unhurried. Sometimes, in the midst of the rush, I'd close my eyes for a moment and feel the pulse beneath it all. The same pulse I had felt in the forest, steady and unchanging, like the heartbeat of the earth itself. This pulse held me, grounded me, reminded me that no matter how loud the world grew, there was always a place inside me that was still and whole. Not everything was easy. Old fears surfaced, moments of doubt crept in. The relentless pace of the city threatened to pull me back, to the endless chase for meaning, for success, for approval. But I learned to catch myself, to return to the breath, to the moment, to listen, not just to the noise, but to the spaces in between. There was a strength in surrender, a power in letting go. And in that letting go, I found a freedom I had never known. I wasn't just surviving the city. I was living it, breathing with it, becoming part of its vast, unfolding story. And in that story, I was home. With this new presence came new ways of seeing the people around me. Conversations no longer felt like noise to be endured, but invitations, fragile and perfect and deeply human. I began to notice the subtle shifts in expression, the pauses between words, the silent stories hiding behind tired eyes. I listened not just to what was said, but to what was left unsaid. In crowded rooms, I found myself drawn to stillness. A quiet corner, a gentle smile, a shared breath that spoke louder than any words. Old friendships transformed. Some deepened with unexpected tenderness. Others gently faded, no longer fitting the rhythm I had found. Love took on a new meaning. Not possession or expectation, but a meeting of presences. A dance of two beings acknowledging each other's wildness and peace. Work became less about achievement and more about flow. I no longer chased deadlines as enemies, but moved with their rhythm, finding moments of calm within pressure, breathing space within chaos. Even the city itself seemed less like a cage and more like a vast organism, alive with stories, rhythms, and songs waiting to be heard. Yet, amid all this change, a quiet question lingered. How do I hold on to this fragile connection when the world pulls me back toward distraction, fear, and noise? The answer came not in grand revelations, but in small, steady choices. To pause, to breathe, to listen, again and again. To remember that the forest is not just a place, but a state of being. A whisper beneath the roar. A quiet flame in the heart of the storm. And as long as I carry that flame, I am never truly lost. There were days when the flame flickered. Moments when the city's noise grew too loud. When doubt crept in like shadows at dusk. In those times, the familiar rush threatened to swallow me whole. Old habits, old fears whispered lies. You don't belong here. You've lost your way. This is all there is. I felt the weight of disconnection press heavy. The sharp sting of loneliness cutting deeper than any forest shadow. But even in those dark moments, I found a quiet resilience, a memory of the river's slow current, the steady rhythm of rain on leaves. I would close my eyes, breathe deep, and remember that the flame is not a raging fire, but a small, steady glow, a light that need not burn bright to survive. I learned to honor the flicker, to sit with the doubt without trying to banish it, to let the shadows exist without losing sight of the light. It was a dance. Sometimes the flame would waver. Sometimes it would steady, but it never went out. And in that delicate balance, I found a new kind of strength. Not the strength of force or will, but the strength of acceptance and patience. The city remained a wild, noisy place, full of challenges and distractions. But within me, the forest lived on, quiet, enduring, patient. And that was enough to keep walking, to keep listening, to keep being. Slowly, the boundaries between inside and outside began to blur. The lessons from the forest seeped into everyday moments. In the way I moved, in the way I spoke, in the way I simply was. Mornings became a sacred ritual, not just a race against the clock, but a chance to reconnect with the pulse beneath the surface. The first sip of coffee was no longer just a caffeine fix, but a moment to taste presence itself. Work transformed from a series of tasks to a dance with flow and resistance. Deadlines still came and went, but I met them with steadiness, not panic. I found that by honoring the rhythm inside me, I could move more freely through the chaos outside. Relationships deepened, not because I tried harder, but because I was more fully present. I listened without rushing to respond. I shared without needing to fix. I held space without judgment. There were still challenges. The city's noise would rise again. Old doubts and fears would knock at the door. But now I had tools. Not just strategies, but lived experience. To face them with gentleness and strength. Sometimes, when the world felt overwhelming, I would step outside and simply breathe, feeling the air on my skin, listening to the distant sounds, remembering the forest's quiet logic. And in those moments, I was whole again, connected, grounded, alive. The journey wasn't about escaping the world, but about coming home to it, fully, deeply, without resistance. And as I moved forward, I carried the forest inside me, a steady flame, a quiet rhythm, a place of peace in the midst of all things. One evening, as the city hummed with its usual restless energy, an unexpected crisis broke through the calm I had built. A friend called, voice trembling, overwhelmed by chaos. A sudden loss, a harsh blow of reality. In that moment, the old impulse to rush, to fix, to control flared up inside me. The noise returned, sharp and demanding. But something was different this time. I took a breath, long and deep. I remembered the river's patient flow, the forest's quiet acceptance. I didn't need to have answers. I didn't need to solve everything at once. I simply listened, fully, without judgment or hurry. My presence became the gift I offered, a steady rock in the storm for someone adrift. We sat together in silence and tears, and in that shared stillness, something shifted. The crisis remained, but the weight eased, not because anything was fixed, but because pain shared is pain softened. I realized then that the forest's lesson was not just about solitude, but about connection. Presence, true presence, is the deepest healing. From that night on, I carried not just the quiet strength of the wild inside me, but also the open heart of the city. Balance was not a destination, but a living dance. Sometimes calm, sometimes wild. Always moving, always becoming. Days turned into weeks, and the memory of that night lingered like a quiet echo. A reminder that true strength is born not from control, but from surrender and presence. I began to see my life as a series of moments, each one a choice to be fully here, to open to whatever came without fear or resistance. Work, once a battleground of deadlines and stress, became a space for creativity and flow. I learned to pause when needed, to step back and breathe, to find stillness even amid the busiest days. My relationships deepened in unexpected ways. I stopped trying to fix or change others, and instead simply listened. This simple act of presence opened doors I hadn't known existed, inviting honesty, vulnerability, and true connection. There were still challenges, of course. The city's chaos never truly quieted. Old patterns whispered to return, but each time I met them with a gentleness learned from the forest, a patient resilience, a steady flame that would not be extinguished. And somewhere deep inside, I knew that this journey was ongoing, a lifelong unfolding, an endless dance between wildness and calm, between solitude and connection. The forest was no longer just a place I had left behind. It was a part of me, a living pulse beneath the surface of everything, guiding me home again and again. And in that guidance, I found a peace that did not depend on where I was, but on who I had become. With each passing day, the line between self and other blurred further. I began to sense the invisible threads that wove us all together, like roots of ancient trees underground, silent yet strong, binding the forest into one living whole. This awareness wasn't just poetic thought. It was a felt reality, a hum beneath the surface of everyday life. I noticed how a stranger's smile could shift the mood of a crowded room, how a single word of kindness sparked a ripple far beyond the moment, how my own breath aligned with the rhythm of the city's heartbeat. The city was no longer a separate beast to tame or fear. It was a living system, intricate and fragile, and I was part of its vast web, a single thread in an endless tapestry. This realization brought both humility and power. Humility, because I was no master of this web, only one node among billions. Power, because each node mattered. Every choice, every action, was a pulse sent through the whole. I became more mindful of what I consumed, not just food or media, but thoughts, energy, intentions. I chose presence over distraction, compassion over judgment, listening over speaking, and in doing so, I found that my own inner forest grew richer, deeper, its roots entwined with the city's pulse, its branches reaching towards something greater than myself. Sometimes, in quiet moments, I would close my eyes and feel the wind on my skin, the murmur of leaves and distant voices blending into a single song, a song of connection, resilience, and endless becoming. And I knew, no matter where I was, in the wild, in the city, or somewhere in between, I was home. But transformation is never a straight path. It has twists and shadows, places where the light falters, where old patterns whisper in familiar tongues. One afternoon, as I walked through a bustling street, I felt a sudden wave of disorientation, a sense of being lost inside myself, as if the threads that held me together were loosening. The noise pressed in, heavier than before, not just outside, but inside my mind. Questions rose like tides. Who am I, really? What do I want? What if this connection I've found is just illusion? For a moment, panic took hold. The familiar fear of fragmentation. The urge to retreat, to isolate, to shut down. But then a voice, soft, steady, reminded me of the forest's oldest lesson. To be whole, I must embrace the broken parts, not run from them. I stopped walking, breathed deep, allowed myself to feel the fracture, the uncertainty, the pain. In that openness, something shifted. The threads didn't break. They stretched, they flexed, they grew stronger through the strain. I realized that transformation isn't about becoming perfect, or fixed, or complete. It's about becoming whole through the cracks. About finding beauty in the imperfect dance of being human. The city's chaos was still there. But inside me, a new kind of peace took root. A peace born not from control, but from radical acceptance. And with that peace, I stepped forward again. Not as someone who had all the answers, but as someone willing to walk the path, with open eyes and open heart. I started noticing subtle layers beneath everyday moments. The shared breath between strangers on a crowded train. The quiet determination in a street vendor's tired smile. The delicate balance of light and shadow playing on cracked pavement. Each moment became a doorway, an invitation to step deeper into connection, to witness the unfolding story of life in all its messiness and grace. I no longer feared uncertainty or brokenness. Instead, I welcomed them as teachers, guiding me through the labyrinth of being. The city and I were no longer separate. We moved together in a dance of give and take, each step a conversation between inner and outer worlds. Sometimes, when the noise threatened to overwhelm, I found refuge in small rituals. A quiet walk at dawn, the taste of warm tea, a moment of stillness in the middle of chaos. These were not escapes, but anchors. Reminders that no matter how wild the storm, there is always a place within where peace resides. And so I walked on, a stranger and a part of this vast world, carrying the forest's wisdom deep inside me, learning anew what it means to be alive, to be connected, to be whole. As days passed, I realized that this quiet harmony was not meant to remain hidden inside. It began to ripple outward, shaping the way I moved through the world, the way I showed up for others. I found myself more patient, more present in conversations, not rushing to fill silences, not scrambling to fix or advise, but simply being there, fully attentive. A colleague struggling with a difficult project was met not with quick solutions, but with steady support. A shared breath that said, "You're not alone." Old friendships, once frayed by distance and distraction, began to mend naturally, woven together by threads of genuine care. Even strangers received a different kind of attention. A smile held a little longer. A nod that acknowledged unseen struggles. A willingness to see beyond surface impressions. This new way of being wasn't perfect. There were still moments of impatience, frustration, and doubt. But each time, I returned to the breath, to the rhythm of presence that underpinned everything. And slowly, the city itself seemed to soften. Its edges less harsh, its noise less overwhelming. I saw it not as a battleground, but as a shared space. A living organism in which every action mattered. With this awareness came a new sense of responsibility, not burden, but a quiet commitment to care, to listen, to act with kindness. I was still learning, still evolving, but the path ahead felt clearer. Not because it was easy, but because I walked it with an open heart. One evening, as the sun dipped low behind glass towers. I found myself sitting beside an old man in a quiet park. His eyes held stories, worn but bright. And in his silence, I sensed a kindred presence. We spoke little at first, but the space between words was filled with understanding. He shared fragments of his life, losses, regrets, moments of unexpected grace. I listened without judgment or rush, offering only my steady presence. As night fell, he reached out and took my hand. "I've carried a heavy weight for years," he said softly. "But sitting here with you, I feel it lighten." In that moment I understood. My journey was never just about myself. It was about the ripple effect of presence. The power of simply being there for another soul. We are all forests, connected through roots unseen, each of us holding pieces of light and shadow. And sometimes, all it takes is one quiet moment, one open heart, to remind another that they are not alone. Walking home beneath the stars, I felt a deep gratitude for the path I had taken, for the lessons learned in silence, for the unspoken bonds that hold us together. The city was alive, not just with noise, but with countless stories, each waiting for someone to listen. And I knew, as long as I remembered to listen, to be present, to open my heart, the journey would continue. Endless, unfolding, beautiful. After that evening, a quiet shift took root within me. The world no longer felt like a series of separate moments, but a continuous flow of interwoven stories. Mine, yours, theirs, all moving together like the currents of a great river. I began to see my life not as a solitary path, but as a thread in a vast tapestry. Each choice, each word, each breath, adding color and texture to the whole. Purpose, once a distant and daunting idea, became something simple and immediate. To be present, to be kind, to be awake to the beauty and pain around me. I saw how easily I had once been caught in the illusion that I was separate, alone, responsible only for myself. But the forest had taught me otherwise. We are connected always. This understanding brought both humility and freedom. Humility, because I recognized how small I was in the grand dance of life. Freedom, because I realized I did not have to carry the world's weight alone. Instead, I could lean into the support around me. The unseen roots of friendship, love, shared humanity. And in doing so, I found a peace deeper than any I had known. A peace born not from control, but from surrender to the flow of life itself. I carried this peace like a quiet flame, ready to be shared, to be kindled in others, lighting the way through dark moments, reminding us all that even in chaos, there is connection, there is meaning, there is hope. With each passing day, I found that this quiet flame within me was no longer just a refuge. It became a source of action, not grand gestures or dramatic changes, but small, deliberate choices rooted in presence and compassion. I helped a neighbor carry groceries. I paused to truly hear a friend's worries without rushing to fix them. I chose to walk instead of drive, feeling the earth beneath my feet, reconnecting to the rhythm of life. These moments were simple, almost invisible, but they held a power I hadn't known before. Like drops of rain that quietly nourished the soil. They fostered growth in me and around me. Sometimes the old restlessness crept back. Whispers of doubt and impatience threatening to pull me under. But now, I recognize these shadows not as enemies, but as old parts of myself calling for attention and care. I met them with kindness, breathing through discomfort, allowing myself to be whole, even in imperfection. I realized that life's true journey isn't a straight path to perfection or peace. It's a winding road of learning, falling, rising, and becoming. And through it all, the thread of presence, of listening deeply, both to the world and to my own heart, was my guide. The forest's wisdom was no longer a distant memory, but a living force within me, pushing me gently toward deeper connection, greater understanding, and a love that transcended fear. This love was quiet, steady, and resilient, a constant companion on the winding journey of life. Not long after, a challenge arrived, not dramatic, but insistent. A tension between what I wanted and what the world demanded. A close friend, overwhelmed by their own struggles, lashed out in frustration and pain. In the past, I might have recoiled, taken it personally, or tried to fix the situation quickly to restore peace. But now, I held the space differently. I listened deeply, not just to words, but to the feelings beneath them. The fear, the hurt, the exhaustion. I did not rush to respond or react. Instead, I offered my presence, steady, open, and unshaken. In that silence, a new kind of conversation unfolded. One that didn't need words to heal. It was in that moment I understood fully. Presence itself is a form of love, not a fix or a solution, but a quiet force that holds, supports, and transforms. This was the fruit of the forest's lesson, the gift of the city's complexity, a love that doesn't cling or demand, but simply is. And as I stood there, grounded and calm, I felt a deep gratitude for the journey, for the wild and the noise, the solitude and the connection, all woven together into the tapestry of becoming. Days turned into weeks, and the quiet strength I found in presence began to ripple outward, not just in that one relationship, but in many small ways across my life. I noticed how the people around me seemed to respond to the calm I carried. A coworker who usually rushed and stressed slowed down in my presence. A stranger waiting in line smiled a little easier. Conversations deepened beyond small talk, revealing layers of vulnerability and trust that felt new and sacred. Yet, with this growing connection came new challenges. Being present meant facing not only others' light but also their darkness. I encountered grief, anger, and despair, emotions that unsettled me, forcing me to confront parts of myself I had long avoided. But I no longer turned away. I held space for those shadows within others and myself, knowing that healing begins with acknowledgement, not avoidance. This practice of presence became a kind of meditation, an ongoing dialogue between the heart and the world, where acceptance and compassion were the guiding lights. At night, when the city's noise faded and the stars appeared, I would sit quietly, breathing deeply, feeling the pulse of life within and beyond me. The same pulse that once beat through the jungle's depths. And in those moments, I was reminded that the journey is never truly over. It is a continuous unfolding, a dance between light and shadow, connection and solitude, surrender and action. I am a part of this vast living web, not apart from it. And as long as I listen, as long as I show up, there is always more to learn, more to love, more to become.